Here we are, the original trilogy section of the rankings. At this point, you've discovered that I place the original trilogy above every other Star Wars movie. I don't think everyone does that, but to me, if I had to pick my top five favorite movies of all time, one of them is a Star Wars movie. One of them is this one, obviously, but one of them is a Star Wars movie. And it changes depending upon my mood and what I want from movies. Each of these in the original trilogy of A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi is great for different reasons and not as great for equally different reasons. So instead of ranking them, I'm going to take the cop out and tell you why each of the original trilogy is potentially the best one and why each of them is maybe a little weaker compared to the other ones depending on certain factors. So, and one more note with this, I am going to be talking about my understanding of the original production of Star Wars: A New Hope. For me, I think I guess I remember them as the remastered ones and not the special editions, but the remastered ones that came out on video cassette in the 90s. Those are the ones I am used to. So I'm talking Han shot first, no extra CGI, but there's obviously still some changes in there that I couldn't pick out as much as some of the other ones that have happened later on in time. So Han shot first, no CGI, Hayden Christensen, that sort of thing. No dewbacks, no extra Jabba the Hutt scene in this movie. I think you get what I'm saying. Star Wars: A New Hope. It is impossible to overstate how big this was, and I think it's probably a little bit out of our understanding of movies today, how big it was. Like today, Avengers comes out, makes $1 bajillion, goes to the home video market, makes a bunch of toys, yeah, so on and so forth. Avengers now is very much a big deal in our society and movies and popular culture and all that. When Star Wars: A New Hope came out, obviously I wasn't there to see it, but when you read about some of the things that happened, it shows just how crazy big it was. People seeing it 4 times opening day, a disco song being made about it and it being a top hit, it being re-released in theaters 4 or 5 times because the home video market wasn't the same. It just was literally re-released in theaters the year afterward, several other times before the special edition came out, before all that stuff. Like that just sounds like a foreign concept to us. You seeing a movie in 1977 and then seeing it again in 1978 and 80 whatever and all these other things. That's definitely different. Like this made a bunch of money, immediately turned its actors into stars and turns George Lucas into a very lucrative man who no longer had to care what anyone thought about his movies or funding for his movies or stuff like that. Like when he got the merchandising rights to his stuff, he made a shit ton of money, and you can think that's cash grab, but in the end, it made him essentially be able to answer to not many people when it came to his art and his movies. So, which became more obvious going forward. But why is New Hope the best one? I think it's the most distilled, most Star Wars experience. It's very much a hopeful adventure film. You're introduced to the characters, they overcome the evil in the end. It is a self-contained movie. If this was the only one, it would have handled itself well and paid off itself well, unlike say Force Awakens, in my opinion. The Death Star is destroyed and this happens. And yes, there's an opening for a sequel, but you feel good about what has happened in that movie. Um, it's just the most Star Wars thing ever. Now, I think, especially for younger people, why it wouldn't be the greatest Star Wars movie, it's easily the most dated of them all. Like, it feels very 70s when you watch it. The technology is not as good, especially compared to the modern movies, but even compared to Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, it's not as impressive. The Death Star trench run is very much a small conflict. It feels like a small conflict, probably because they couldn't make it look like a large conflict. So yeah, there's probably a little bit of cheese in this one, and the lightsaber fighting is amateur hour compared to anything else that happens in the series. Alec Guinness versus Darth Vader in this movie is pretty bad. It's a lot of old man fighting, which you can sort of say is fine, but it's not this technologically impressive. There also is a little bit of whiny bitchness to Luke Skywalker. Now, um, sometimes I talk about the cat in the tree theory of why do you like a character? What is the initial thing that shapes your view of a character? And there's a lot of excellent examples of that in this movie. So I'm gonna list four. First time you meet Han Solo, he's he's in a back and forth with a bounty hunter, and he blasts him before he gets blasted himself, and so he shows that he's not above being a little shady, but he's charismatic, he's intelligent. That's why you like him. Um, Princess Leia, the first time you see her, she's talking back to Darth Vader and killing a soldier and just being really really confident in the face of what could potentially be overwhelming odds. So you immediately like her. Darth Vader walks in as a badass atop the station. He looks the way he looks. You know he's evil. He's got the voice. He immediately sets off as an intimidating, cool villain. Luke Skywalker's introduction is it's buoyed by music, and in general, he's the kid that wants to get out of his home and see something greater, and that's sympathetic, but he's kind of a whiny bitch at first. He's like, I want to go to the charging station and pick up some power converters. Me. Like, this is so much a part of the movie that it gets parodied in things like Thumb Wars. Like, just like his father, he, ironically enough, is kind of sort of, yeah, he gets there eventually. He's not quite as dweebish eventually, but he does start off as being a protagonist that's a little could be better. Could definitely be better. This is also the one that I think gets kind of retconned a little bit by its later movies. And I don't necessarily mean retcon. You can you can argue that Obi-Wan is lying to Luke to to save himself, to save him from the knowledge. You can say that, but things like, okay, let me get this straight. If George Lucas really had this whole thing planned out, he was okay with Luke and Leia being brother and sister and having several points of incest or like weird romantic tensions between the two, like that doesn't look as good when Return of the Jedi comes out. So while it does stand on its own, there are some obvious points that it clashes with other movies in the series. So when I pine for the happiness and the pure nostalgia, feel good adventure movie aspects of this movie, this is when I think it's the best Star Wars movie. When I examine some of the other aspects about it, this is when it's probably not as strong as Empire and Return of the Jedi when it comes to technical aspects or some other story planning elements. Let me know what you think. Is this your favorite of the original trilogy? Is it your favorite Star Wars movie? Are you one of the people that thinks this is the worst one because of the technical limitations? Let me know in the comments.